Sal, we've got an amazing episode today. This is like the godfather of Muppet death scenes here. We're going to be talking about the strange death of Tish James's father, a guy by the name of Robert James. How are you today, Sal?
I don't know. I would say a little under the weather. It's just, you gotta get enough sleep in life. You know, when
Absolutely.
you work all night and you're doing shows and doing research, it's just sleep is sometimes it's just not on the bracket for doing, but you need to do it. Otherwise, you feel a little sluggish. So
That's right.
at the moment,
That's
I'm a
right.
little sluggish.
Well, listen, there's plenty of time to sleep when you fake your own death
Yeah,
if
well,
you're
that's the
Robert
truth.
James. Now,
You
let me
fake.
just clarify. I think you disagree with my position that the death was faked. Is that correct? I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just talking about evidence that I see. Where are you at with this?
So I think this. I think the death certificate we saw from Joe Gilbert, that is, I think this is all correct, and I think where we need to focus on, what the focus should be on, and you were on this also. There's a 13-year gap, which you then went into with the probate court and the surrogate court. And I have a bigger question because I don't know what the hell, why there's such a gap, because this man had properties on mortgages. You got into the whole company Cadillac, which was Cadillac funding or whatever they call themselves. They didn't, I mean, they were already in problems. You already pointed out about the article in 1997.
Right.
So my theory here, or what I'm thinking, and I've been in this position as a police officer, is somebody there panicked. And the only other person I could think of and who needs to be questioned would be Letitia James herself, because with this one or whatever it was, like right at that time when that article came out, she then files this probate court filing right around the exact time of this article. And she's trying to, I believe, cover something, because the next thing you looked at and you found, and I saw that you found this, and nobody's really talking about it, is there's no filing, I believe, or there's nothing you could find that proves there's Social Security that was notified of his death. Now, that would mean that's a much bigger picture. And I saw that even Joel wrote this, and this is something now everybody, something you homed in on, and you kind of wrote it, but you glanced at it. You didn't like say, oh, look at this. I told you right now, the Social Security aspect of this for 13 years, whatever happened here, there's no filing on Social Security, right? If we go with that, because right now we can't find anything.
Well, wait a minute. Some of this is,
That's a huge, Jason. That's a huge crime
but
if you
some of it
committed some
has
kind of Social
changed.
Security fraud.
Some of this has changed because Joel the other day. So let's just back up because some people maybe haven't been following this, and it's a bit weird. Beyond the strange death of Robert James, it's the strange fight that broke out between, Joel and I have known each other like 6 years. He's been on my show many times. He's done a lot of great documentaries, books about Barack Obama, Michelle Obama. I liked Joel, and I mean, what happened was, I didn't know Sam Antar. I mean, I was aware of him, of course, from Crazy Eddie, and he's on X and everything like that. But you had Sam Antar on. This whole story broke where Sam Antar was saying that Tish James had declared Virginia as her primary residence, and that this was a problem because if she's going to be the New York State Attorney General, she can't be living in Virginia. And so, which is true. And are you living in Virginia or are you the New York State Attorney General? So, Joel contacted me. He came on my show. I saw that Joel was also researching it. I said, well, I don't know Sam, and I couldn't reach him. But I got to Joel, and Joel came on the show, and we did a show about his research. And then Joel contacted me a couple days or weeks later and said, hey, I'm coming to New York. Do you want to do a video with me and Sam? We're going to go over and investigate Tish's property, the one in question. I think it was 296 Lafayette. I'm not sure which one, but they invited me to go with them, and I couldn't do it. I was in Allegheny. I was in Pennsylvania suing the medical examiner over stuff to do with the Butler July 13th assassination attempt.
The other fiasco, yeah.
Exactly. So I was kind of sad that I missed that, and I started following what they were doing a little bit more closely, and I started finding some crazy things. This was April 29th, just like, 3 weeks ago or something. And I said, well, everybody knows I like doing AI and cool graphics to capture people's attention. I tried to make this heroic image of Sam and Joel taking on this money tornado that Tish James was cracking open, because I was talking with Charles Ortel about this, and we started to find that in addition to this declaration that she was married to her father, which obviously seems like fraud, that she was doing things more recently that she had. Now, I said she took out a lien, so Joel didn't like that language. He says it's a loan. I've spoken to some mortgage experts who say, yeah, Jason, this is sort of awkward language for the industry, but you're technically right that you take out a loan, you get a mortgage, the bank has a lien on your property because they're going to come and take it. Just Joel got very upset about this whole tweet storm. What I was trying to get at is we found she was doing stuff with nonprofits, and I'm not trying to horn in on their investigation. This is what initially caught my attention, is that there was something to do with this neighborhood housing services of NYC. And I said, wait a minute, that sounds a lot like the Neighborhood Association of Intercultural Affairs, which you might recall, Sal. That was the private security thing at the Walcott Hotel that threw me out when we had that whole Detective Johnson, Hugh Johnson thing. So I'm like, wait a minute, is Tish James tied into this Eric Adams nonsense with the whatever's going on at the Walcott Hotel? And people might know that the judge in my lawsuit, Goodman v. the City of New York, is a judge by the name of Jessica G.L. Clark, who was working for Tish James for 4 years prior to becoming a judge. And my case is one of the first cases she ever did as a judge. So again, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to get in on what those guys are doing. By the way, even if I was, they don't own information, so their reaction was a little strange. We found out that one of the mortgages she had, me and Charles and myself, found out that one of her mortgages had been just taken over by this Bank of India, which is 53% owned by the government of India. So Joel didn't like it that I called it a government bank, and that she had various things that looked like shell companies. They made a Bedford-Stuyvesant division of this neighborhood, whatever it is. And see, one thing I think that might have gotten us off on a wrong foot that Joel might not understand, Charles Ortel is a very sophisticated investor and financial expert. He retired at age 41 after being in charge of mergers and acquisitions at this huge thing. So he's become, just like as a hobby, a complex fraud investigator. And something that he frequently says is like, oh, this nonprofit agency just doesn't exist. And people be like, what the hell are you talking about? There's the Clinton Foundation. They have an office right there. They have an office over here. And he's saying that it doesn't legally exist as a nonprofit because it's not registered with the IRS. It doesn't have a determination letter and all this stuff. So I sort of said that somewhere in here that it didn't exist, meaning they just opened an office and called it the Bedford-Stuyvesant Division and start sharing EINs from things that aren't nonprofits and whatever. And they're just going crazy with all of this money stuff. And I think Joel didn't like this, that I tried to make it like a graphic novel kind of a presentation. But I mean, again, Sal, you know me. My background is in visual effects and Hollywood and everything. And this is dense information. I want people to be kind of gripped by it so that they'll come and look at it. And also, it's like political cartoons. I'm trying to make fun of Tish James because I think she's a fat idiot who's stealing tons of money and getting involved in eating steaks and doing shakedowns. And so he got pissed. Joel started sending me these really like crazy rude emails. And I was like, oh, let me try and calm this down. This was all in private, And look, after 2 divorces and over 50 years on this planet, lots of accusations of being a hothead. You've met me. I'm not that big a guy. I'm trying to stay out of fights. So I figured, let me calm this down with Joel a little bit, but that didn't work. He got extremely pissed off. So, I mean, look, it's one thing to disagree with me, but to say I'm a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist and whatever, and start disparaging me in public just felt really unnecessary. And then it started to cross over to the point of like, what the hell are these guys talking about? Because I'm starting to uncover a lot of very serious evidence. And so, I started demanding that Joel produce this death certificate because I just kind of had a hunch. I didn't have, obviously, proof initially, but I had a hunch that the deaths, I didn't see a death certificate. I didn't see a lot of evidence that the father was dead. Public databases that anybody can subscribe to, Radaris and People Finder or whatever, they said the mother was dead, but they did not say that the father was dead. And I was like, well, that's weird because the mother died in 2010. And when we look at Tish James on Wikipedia, this is pretty weird, Sal. And the other thing I really like about yours and my collaboration, which we're like at 6 months now. So, we've been doing a lot of great shows. But when we get into this mode, and you've said it many times, a lot of people who watch your show are retired NYPD, active NYPD, and they say, this guy Goodman, he's just a conspiracy theorist throwing out nonsense. So very often when we get into these kind of conversations, you have a tendency to lean into your police background and be extremely skeptical in the way, and I had experienced this one time. I went to the NYPD to report a crime and was talking to detectives, and they talked to me for like an hour and then brought in this woman from like the legal department or whatever, who was the person who was deciding whatever, if they're going to charge this or what. And that lady, just whatever I said, she was like, nope, nope, nope. So I presume you have had that experience when you want to arrest somebody or charge somebody, whatever. There's somebody at the police who is just super skeptical, says that's not evidence, even though you think it is. And I like it when you do that, because we're going to do that today, because I see anomalous evidence, and we still can't really make a conclusion. I might be making some conclusions, but these are my personal opinions. They don't reflect anything on Sal. I haven't proven these things in court, but so here we go. Tish James, Wikipedia, people can doubt it if they want, but her early life and education. Letitia Ann James was born October 18th, 1958 in Brooklyn, New York. One of 8 children born to Nellie James, who was born 1919. She lived to be very old. She was like, she died 2010, so she was 90 or something like that. And Robert James, but it doesn't tell us when he was born or where, which I find at least inconsistent, okay? But just basing it on, let's say the father is within a couple years, maybe even if he's younger than the mother, he'd be over 100 years old if he was alive now. So I do agree with your assessment that it's highly unlikely that the father is alive today. But the question that we're really trying to answer is, you brought up earlier this New York Times article, and that's the issue. The question that we are trying to answer is, was the father alive when this article came out in June 1999? And again, basing it off the mother, he was in his 70s or something in 1999. And what this article is basically saying is that a bunch of foreclosures are spurring a volume business in refurbishing and selling homes. And it's talking about how these subprime lenders, including this Cadillac funding, are getting into all kinds of lawsuits. And even one of the guys at Cadillac funding was federally prosecuted because Cadillac funding was involved in some loan programs that were backed by the federal government or something. They were basically designed to give loans to people who ordinarily wouldn't be able to get loans in low-income neighborhoods. And I presume because the government wanted to promote, families and whatever, you had to be married to get one of these loans. So Joel has said a number of times that she's declared on this loan. Maybe she's trying to get a favorable rate. I don't think so. They're not shopping around to shave a few basis points from their interest rate. They're trying to do fraud. So they're lying to Cadillac or complicit with Cadillac in getting this loan as a married couple, even though they shouldn't be able to get it. And what I'm saying is, I believe, again, not yet proven, but I believe the father would have been reading this New York Times article in 1999, and he says to himself, oh no, I'm going to get jammed up. Any of these Cadillac guys start getting federally prosecuted, documents with my name on it are going to come out, somebody's going to roll over, and I'm going to spend the last 10, 15 years of my life in court and in jail. Nobody wants that. And so I believe he hatched a scheme. And he says, Tish, you better get your fat ass down to the probate court and erase me from that deed, erase me from planet Earth, and I'm going to keep cashing Social Security checks and live in this apartment in Oakland Park in Jamaica, Queens, and I'll just, I'll cash the Social Security checks at the payday loan place. Nobody will know what the hell is going on. Robert James, there's like hundreds of Robert Jameses just in New York. And this was my surmise, Sal. What do you think of this so far?
I would say it's a theory. You never say never. I would say the probability of it, though, is very slim, because going back to what you're saying is the death certificate. Now, I believe that Joel does have that. That is the death certificate.
Well, he's published something that he says is the death certificate. He's published.
So and by all accounts, they're trying to say, including Tish James herself, would say the father died in '86. The problem is that it took 13 years for her, and she was a lawyer in 1987. You could see that on the Wikipedia. Yeah. So you can't claim, I don't know, I'm negligent. Remember, her name is also on that mortgage. 13 years to file the rest of this paperwork, because in my opinion now, what's definitely, glaring at me is for 13 years, she filed nothing right. to do with the court. There's no, we need to do this, no, because she, as the now sole person on this, or as one of the people on that loan, she would benefit from it. Wow. So she's the person who's definitely in a hot seat and in question in all of this, minus the father. Now, the father now, who's gone for 13 years, right? He's been deceased. The Social Security thing begins to come into play, because there's no record of Social Security having him deceased. I believe you said to this day. I think you looked up and down, and
wait. But let me slow you down, because it's changed since we last spoke about it. Because 2 days ago on Gateway Pundit, as you just mentioned, Joel released this article. So I get into this beef with Joel, and he's like, Jason, basically F you. And I couldn't believe it, because, like I said, I had Joel on many times, and I had a good relationship with Joel, I thought. And I basically said, look, at this point, Joel, if you don't have a death certificate for this guy, forget it. You're just blowing smoke. So he published this article in Gateway Pundit. Now, look, ordinarily, and I called this probate court, the, what's it called? Surrogates Court of New York. I called them. And first I said, okay, I'm a journalist. Can I get this document? And they're like, okay, talk to the records department. And there's certain records that you can get. And then, but when I started talking about the death certificate, Sal, these ladies got pissed off that I was even trying to get it. They're like, no, that's not a public record. It's not public for 50 years. So if this guy died in 1986, it's not public until 2036. And then, so I said, okay, here's the real thing. There is a journalist who's saying that he has it, and he published it. They flipped out. And they said, no, I said, did somebody come in there and get it? And they're like, there's no way. They got nuts. And so then, I don't know. According to the law in New York, the mother who was alive in 1999, remember Wikipedia over here is telling us the mother died 2010.
2010.
Right? Wait, does it tell us that? Somewhere else it tells us that the mother died 2010.
I don't know. I did see that in it.
There it is. There, it says, city records stated meeting. Well, maybe that's not it, but it does. The mother, there's a probate filing for the mother where the mother died. And the probate, we should look at that too, because the probate filing for the mother, this is important. The probate filings, both done by Tish, they're very different. The one for the mother and the one for the father.
Also done in a speedy, almost like a speedy way of doing it, where it's supposed to be done. She did the mom's paperwork immediately. So she was on top of that. But she's not on top of the other one because, she got all those loans on it. So that's what I'm saying. Looks suspicious to me.
Exactly. It was a little bit, what the hell? It's a little bit fugazi, as somebody I know might say. Fugazi. Little fugazi. And I was like, wait a minute. So what the hell's going on with that? I want to find this. I have it in one of these posts. It's a little difficult to sometimes find things on X, but we when I started talking about, I know there's a lot of people who disagree with me, and that is totally fine. People don't have to agree with me or anything. But here we go. So we got, is this it? Administrative? No, this is two different ones. I don't know where I have it. But the mother's got like 6 files in there, and the father has just got this petition filed October 14th, 1999, and then a microfilm document. On the mother's, it says, let me bring it up because we got to see this so we have the evidence. I want you to be the NYPD legal department and tell me when I'm incorrect. I have it here. Robert James, Nellie James. Here it is. Is this it? Yeah. Okay. So there's the mother's right here. And we can see the mother's voluntary admin affidavit is filed by Letitia James. This is May 26, 2010. This is where they saw that the mother died 2010. So we have all these documents. Death certificate, family tree, the funeral bill copy, this notice to interested parties. People who know about this stuff are telling me this is the most important thing. Because what this is some kind of public thing that you need to do so that if there's creditors that you don't even know about, they're trying to clear this dead person's estate. And so you put out this notice to interested parties who can come and make a claim against this estate if they need to. And so she's got all these things filed there for the mother, but this fugazi filing for the dad. And it's a problem, and we're sort of like, why is that? We don't understand. Why do we have only administration petition, which is like a legal document written by Tish saying, hey, I'm going to run this, and then this microfilm. Now, to be fair, 2010, this thing has probably obviously gone digital. In 1999, you're probably still filing paper. When were you in the cops, Sal? What years?
From 08 on.
Okay. So in 1999, I could believe that it was still paper filings. The city is behind. Government stuff is always behind on technology.
Yeah, I would say paper filings. Yeah.
Right. And that's why that thing is microfilm, because it was paper at one point. Then they film it. And it's going to be some kind of a scan of the microfilm. And that seems to be what Joel had was... he got, I guess, I don't know how Joel got this. Do you have any insight into where Joel got this from? Because these ladies at the court seem to think it was like trying to break into Fort Knox to get one of these.
No, I would say, I think this could happen. So you could do 4 requests. You could do requests. You could subpoena things in court. And sometimes in these trove of documents would be another trove of documents. You're like, what is this about? But it has something to do with whatever it is you looked at. So
you raised two good points. You raised 2 valid points. Could be a mistake that he got it, or could have gotten it from somebody else. Because the ladies at the court said to me that the only person who has this is the administrator of the estate or anyone who had a legal claim against the estate and went to court and got a ruling that said you need to give the death certificate because this person's trying to sue. Like if somebody contested the ownership of that apartment that she's saying, hey, my father's dead and I own it, that person could sue the estate. And if the judge says, okay, based on your evidence, boom, here's the thing. Go call these pissed off ladies at the surrogate court and get your copy of the thing. But I don't know. Joel, he hasn't told me how he got it, obviously. And just from knowing him and watching his movies, that is his shtick. He goes, if he's investigating somebody at the University of Chicago, he goes there to their library and pulls documents and goes to the records room and all this. So I assumed, he hasn't told me, I just assumed, because he also came to New York with Sam. They made a bunch of videos at the Tish, and this was good. I was sad that I missed this because they went to the actual apartment and, checked the electric meters and how many units were at the apartment, because this was another thing they were claiming was a fraud. So that's good gumshoe journalism. Mm-hmm. And I just presumed while Joel was in New York, he probably went to the court and got this thing. But it was yesterday that I called them and they like bit my head off at the notion that I wanted to get a copy of it. And so I don't know how he got it. I'd like to know how he got it. But
I would say more than likely it's part of some other case or something and the trove of documents is in that. So because it's public or part of a case, that's
It's
how
not
you
public. They said it's not public because there was
well,
no lawsuit against this estate.
that you know of,
No, these
or
ladies
whoever.
said at the court the only person who has it is the administrator of the estate. Now, maybe Tish James gave it to somebody in her family. There was another article. So maybe Joel was in touch with somebody in the family because he had an article about something about missing siblings or whatever. And if the father is setting the daughter up for fraud, I could easily understand if you had 8 brothers and sisters that some of them hate each other or who knows what. Somebody wants to get revenge on Tish James giving these documents to Joel. I don't know. But it would be interesting to know where the hell he got the thing from, because if he got it from the court and doesn't have this kind of lawsuit or a legal reason to have it, is potentially a violation of the law, certainly to publish the thing. And I raised this with, I just was, tweeting at Jim Hoft. They don't care. Now, I do agree that now that Joel has made it public, or even just the act of getting it, however he got it, and giving it to Gateway Pundit, it becomes kind of like New York Times v. Sullivan. It's also important to remember and remind people, I'm not an attorney, so nothing I'm saying is legal advice. Nobody should do anything based on anything I say apart from becoming a sponsor of Crowdsource the Truth on subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, or by going to Substack. Odyssey tells me they're going to be bringing back their monetization. And of course, people should also visit salgreco.com and tap on the support tab and support Sal, because this is our only job. This is how we make money, and Sal is doing videos all the time. People should support Sal. But I'm not trying to give anybody legal advice. I'm not trying to give Jim Hoft legal advice. I was just like, hey, I don't know if you know this, because I didn't know it until I got yelled at, or you told me, and it was really reinforced by these ladies at the court. And it's somebody I spoke to about it said the reason they're like that is because that is like a vault of identity theft. So it's their job to keep those records safe from fraudsters who will go in there, download all these documents, figure out who's dead, and start identity duplexing with dead people who haven't filed probate or I don't know what. But they were super pissed off by the notion that somebody got and had this document. So now that Joel has published it, I don't care if Tish James tries to prosecute me. I'll go in court and be my own attorney and explain that New York Times v. Sullivan allows me to have this. But it's also, we got to be careful because there's the law and then there's like Twitter rules and stuff. So I don't really want to post this thing at a large enough size that anybody can make out social security numbers or anything like that. But there is a social security number in this document that Joel has published that's changed the landscape a little bit, and along the lines of what you were talking about, because I do listen to what you tell me, even if we get in arguments on the phone and I don't want to do it right away. I did listen to what you told me, and it is true. If she's doing Social Security fraud and somebody's been cashing this old man's checks because he's not properly registered as being deceased, I agree that's an extremely big crime. And by the way, even if I love that argument in law, Sal. Even if it's just a clerical error, and frankly, this would explain how Joel might be able to get it. This thing says microfilmed document. If you notice, the Nellie James says death certificate. So this is indexed with the New York State Surrogate Court, and that's why she's recorded as dead and the father isn't. Now, how that came to be, I don't know. But it's clear to see, I didn't make this. This is, go on the court and download this. This is a government document. This is what they would call self-authenticating evidence. I don't need anybody to raise their right hand and tell me that this is a legitimate document. It's considered by the state to be legit. And so the person at the cops who was yelling at me that I don't have evidence to do whatever I wanted to do 4 years ago can't say that about this. This is self-authenticating evidence that the mother is recorded as dead and the father isn't.
But see, the thing again I harp on is, you're right. You look at this and go, something's off here. But the fact that 13 years go by, right, and she doesn't file anything for 13 years. Mind you, she's a lawyer. She has a degree in 87. Don't tell me I don't know. You can't do that. You actually study for this stuff when you're in law school and everything. So what happened in this gap that she decided not to file this thing. And when you file it, it's like a microfilm. It's not a death certificate.
No,
It's
no,
a
she would have
and
filed it on paper. They put it on microfilm when they went to digitize, I think. That's what that is.
okay, so it
She
shows up,
goes
and
in
they
there with a
still
stack of papers.
and now the state still doesn't write that. I guess there's no record of it because it
When she
officially.
gave the papers, they should have said, okay, here's the death certificate, he's dead, and put that in the thing. Why that didn't happen, that remains to
Yeah,
be explained. But we
you
don't
could say
understand this process of taking the paper and putting it on microfilm and putting in this computer. This computer database did not exist in 1986. So this microfilm document in a computer index, that did not exist in 1986. A paper document was in there in 1986 if this was in fact filed in 1986 as she alleges. We don't know what happens if I'm correct and that she falsified the death in 1999. So let's explore that possibility. Because what I'm saying in my most recent article about this is Letitia James faked her father's death in 1999 and nobody can prove me wrong. And so far nobody has. I mean, you can doubt it, that's fine. But if you really want to challenge this theory, you need proof. Because what I'm saying is, you're right that Tish would financially benefit from being the sole owner of a crappy apartment in Queens, but she's also the only person who's at legal risk of doing this fraud. Now, let's think what I'm saying here for a second. If I'm right, and the angry Muppet father says, listen, bitch, get down there and get my name off the lease, because if I get arrested, or if I get indicted under Cadillac funding, I'm bringing you with me. So, as a matter of fact, I might go rat you out right now if you don't, because we don't know what he knew about Cadillac funding. He might say, listen, I'm going to get indicted, and I'm going to make sure you do too. So you better get me off your back and get down there and make some kind of filing. I don't know what. You figure it out. You're 3 years into law school or whatever. She's about to become a lawyer in 1987. So she's easy to go figure it out and file something at the surrogate court that gets my ass out of problem. So I did an analysis of everything we knew, Sal, using artificial intelligence and the whole, I don't know if the police do this, but, detective novels always talk about means, motive, and opportunity. I'm saying, who had the means, the motive, and the opportunity to do this? Well, she had a law degree and a bar license, full act. She was 2 years away in 1999 when I allege this happened. She's a lawyer. She's 2 years away from being Elliot Spitzer's deputy AG. So she's not just a lawyer. She's a sophisticated lawyer with particular expertise in city government, how these different kind of obscure courts might work. She might even know the people in there, I go into these courts and they're like, I'm busy, filing their nails and taking phone calls. They don't want to help me at all. I bet you it's a lot different if you're Tish James and you go in there. But she had a law degree and a bar license, full access to New York surrogate court filing system, deep knowledge of estate procedure, pro se access to file petitions. This is one of the strangest things about it. She files it pro se, meaning representing herself. This is how I move in court, you move in court. Anybody can represent themselves, but I always wondered why, if Alan Dershowitz is in court, why does he need to hire a lawyer? So now we know one reason. It is a huge ethics violation in this case for Letitia James to be filing pro se because she's the beneficiary of this estate. So she needs a third-party attorney to preside over these filings precisely to make sure that there isn't any kind of fraud happening, and she would have known that as well. So let's say, for a minute, the father did die in 1986, and she's like, oh, crap. I was too busy dealing with my schizophrenic brother Ricky and all this other stuff, and I didn't file it. But now I'm an attorney, and I realize we got this kind of defective probate here. Let me go hire a probate attorney to unwind this in a legal way so that it's no longer a legal problem. It doesn't make sense to me that she would go in there and do this incredibly defective pro se filing and increase her criminal exposure and her, this is the wrong way to do it. So she had the means, she had the ability to do it. She was, likely in possession of the original 1983 deed and the mortgage. And on the deed, it said that they're father and daughter. And on the mortgage, it said they're husband and wife. So she's going to know. She's getting jammed up in 1999 by Cadillac, whether the father is dead or alive. The only person who benefits from Robert James being dead in 1999 is Robert James. It actually doesn't help Tish James at all as far as getting prosecuted in the fraud. So then we go to motive, right? Who had the motive to do this? Well, she certainly didn't, because she's increasing her exposure of being accused of fraud by doing all this. It's really just Robert James. It's life insurance fraud if the premiums were still being paid, tax and real estate fraud, misprision of a felony because she's involved in this fraud in 1983 with the father. She doesn't go and say, oh my God, I was 24. See, here's the other thing, Sal. You've been to court. You know what the law is versus what happens when you show up there. And if Abby Lowell or some attorney like that said, hey, look, yes, she was an adult, she was 24, but this was an abusive family, I think the prurient mind goes just from seeing that on the mortgage, that she's being listed as the wife. You start to think about Chinatown and incest, the movie Chinatown, and incest, and was there rape going on? So if a lawyer got into court and say, look, she was 24 at the time, this is an abusive father, he beat her, he sexually abused her, he forced her to do this under duress, there's some way that an attorney in 1999 could have unwound this mess in a way that's much better than this stupid defective pro se filing that she did. But that is not what she did. She did the pro se filing. So the motive here was basically, this is an amazing risk that she took by doing this. And the only person who had the motive was Robert James, and he motivates her by blackmail. So that makes her motive. She's going to get arrested if she doesn't do this, because the father has got her under threat.
Now, I'm living in a highly speculative world here, but where is she in 1999? Is she applying? Is she working for the government?
We don't know. Well,
okay,
we don't know. She's 2 years away. Let's go back to Wiki, because it's an excellent question, Sal. This is what I'm saying. There's evidence, and then there's a lack of evidence. It tells us that she gets a law degree from Howard in 1987, and she's admitted, she passes the bar exam in New York and gets her Juris Doctor degree in 1989. But then we just don't know what the hell she's doing from 1989 until 2001. It says that she was working in the Legal Aid Society as a public defender, but it doesn't really tell us the dates of that, and that she's appointed as the first assistant attorney general in charge of Brooklyn in 1999. So she's an assistant attorney general.
Okay, right here, I see this right here. Elliot Spitzer, she was appointed as the first assistant general in charge of the Brooklyn regional office in 19. So she's working for the government at this point.
Forgive me, the time gap is earlier. But she's working for the government in 1999.
Just so you know,
2 years later, she's in city council. She becomes assistant attorney general, all that.
But now, so in 1999, she begins working in the government. You know that if you work for the government, they're going to probe everything in every aspect of your life, because if they find anything, they can't employ you, because you can't have a criminal working for you.
Well, so, Elliot Spitzer, he got jammed up for criminal charges of paying a hooker, and they kicked him out.
Yes, but he was elected. He got elected to
well, who's he hiring? What about who Eric Adams is hiring? Criminals all over the place. I mean, I don't know. They might check him out, but she's hiding this stuff. Maybe they don't know.
In this time frame, when she is applying for this job, or she's about to get it, they're going to do a little bit of investigation and background on you. So if there's any correlation, and I'm again, this is being speculative, but in 1999, she's about to take a job. So the mad dash to cover your tracks would be, oh my God, I have to go file this thing, because if they see it, that could say, no, you're not only not getting hired, but maybe we need to look into you. And she doesn't need that.
But if they checked it, they would say, hey, wait a minute, this is a huge ethical violation.
It is an ethical problem.
You're filing pro se, and you're the beneficiary. You're fired. So they didn't check it, I don't think, or they don't care about defects.
Well, you don't know that only because 1999, she files it. So she kind of right there says she blocks anything from,
but if the motive for filing it is that they're going to check it, Why
Yeah.
wouldn't she hire a probate attorney? It's like $4,000 or $5,000 to get. It's not like this guy's,
Well,
Elon Musk. He's got no
Jason,
assets, no debt.
Jason, if you have a probate attorney, they're gonna say, "Why did you wait 13 years?" And she doesn't want to deal with
I
somebody.
don't
questioning.
disagree, Sal. These are
That's the
all
problem.
serious problems. Let me show you something else here, because Joel didn't go to this, and it's interesting. There's the this property 11404 Inwood Street. This is the property that they got this Cadillac mortgage for in 1983, and there's all kinds of problems with this. The thing is owned by a woman named Marie E. Rose. And the administrator of that estate, according to the mortgage documents that Joel published and that you can get from Acris, we can even show those. Marie Rose, her estate administrator is a dude. Here, we got all this. This is the Acris database live right now, is Thomas Rose. So it's like, okay, probably the son, right? Marie Rose, Thomas Rose, whatever. But it turns out there's a lot of evidence that indicates Thomas M. Rose is a federal judge today in Ohio, Southern District of Ohio. Thomas M. Rose is a federal judge. And Thomas M. Rose, the same guy, was a lawyer in Ohio in 1983. And I start thinking, well, let's see, what if you're a predatory lawyer and you're looking around for these people who die, I believe it's called intestate, when you don't have a will. And they have these kind of like dangling assets out there, that one of the things that the probate surrogates court does is they assign receivers to these intestate estates where somebody has no will. And they're looking for lawyers or other people who are qualified under certain circumstances to handle the probate of these estates where there's no family, no will, etc. So if you were a predator with a common last name like Rose or whatever, common,
Jones,
you could look,
that's a common name.
right? You could look around and see who's dying without a will. Let me get on this and take over this property. And then all the documents, when some nosy asshole like Jason comes along in 40, 50 years, the documents will look not suspicious because my name matches the dead old lady's name. Okay, fine. But the problem is I then went and looked up the probate filing, in this same digital database on the surrogate court. And here's a really weird thing. So we got the microfilm document. This is the questionable one in 1999, October 14th, 1999, filed by Tish James, her father's estate here, right, with the microfilm document. Okay, so that's October 14th, 1999. And then look at this. This is Marie Rose, the owner of that property that they got the Cadillac loan for. It's filed October 14th, 1982, but it does not have the name of the administrator on there, which is, first of all, makes this defective. Second of all, it should say Thomas M. Rose, but this, to me, Sal, reeks of a nervous, inexperienced criminal filing a lot of forged documents on October 14th, 1999, saying, oh shit, I gotta backdate this dead lady's thing so that it makes sense that we bought the house from her estate in 1983, and since it's October 14th, I'll just change the year. That's a weird coincidence that it's the same day.
Both documents are filed on the same day?
Well, that's what I'm alleging. This one says it was filed on October 14th, 1982, and this one says it was filed on October 14th, 1999. But again, my allegation here is that the Muppet father is threatening her in 1999, saying, you better get down to that probate court and figure out something, or you're definitely going to jail. And she knows the father is an abusive psychopath. So it could be, I don't care if I get jammed up or not. If you don't go do this, I'm going to tell them that you did this, and you're definitely going to jail. So to protect my ass, get down to the probate court, spend 4 months, because this article comes out in the end of June, and he says, you better figure it out quick, Tish, because every single day I'm at risk of getting indicted, and you're getting indicted either way. So get down there, get me off of this mortgage deed, whatever. Tell everybody I'm dead, so when they start sniffing around, Nobody can indict me or have me testify. And he might have deceived her. He might have said, oh, it'll help you too, because now they can't call me to testify against you. You can make up some other lie. We start to get to a motive for her if she's faking it in 1999. Certainly if she's being blackmailed by somebody who's guaranteeing that they're going to rat her out, she has to do it. She has sort of no choice. And so then, anyway, we go back to this.
I tell you, this is like a rabbit hole that forget it. You could go on for hours.
But this is evidence,
looking at
Sal.
this stuff.
Isn't this evidence?
Letitia
James had the legal knowledge to make this filing. She had the experience with the court. She had the ability to backdate. These are paper documents she's filing. You're telling me she can't forge these things? You're telling me there's not some clerk, oh, hi, Miss James, how you doing? Hey, listen, Tommy, just file this for me, could you please? You know, I go in there and they make me wait around for an hour and treat me like a dick. But I bet you she had some friendly clerks. And actually, you know what? It reminds me of something that I experienced personally. In the Eastern District of Michigan in 2022, there's a clerk there by the name of Richard Lurie, who I have developed extensive evidence that causes me to believe, other people might look at this evidence and come to a different conclusion, but it causes me to believe that this clerk in 2022 made an illegal forged filing to help George Webb and his retarded brother. Excuse me, he's not retarded, he's just an asshole. But the notion that you've got a crooked clerk in there who's willing to make filings to help somebody out, that's not beyond the realm of probability. And certainly if Tish James is getting blackmailed, she might motivate. She might know there's somebody in there who's got a drug problem, give him some drugs, give him some money, who knows what. Set him up with a girl, get the person out of the office and do the filing herself some way. Who the hell knows what? But she had the ability to backdate paper documents, omit things, exclude things, the possibility of friendly clerks. She had the opportunity, Sal. Okay? And then
I'd say this. I mean, yeah, you bring up a valid theory here, because again, we can't really 100% back anything up other than whatever documents we have, and even those look jumbled. And the bottom line here is, I think, and from what I could tell, and this is me, and if I was to throw my hat back on and say I'm a cop again,
yeah, you're the legal department.
The father, I think, really. Because these documents have to have some kind of truth to it or something in there. I think that he definitely passed away on that death certificate that Joel has. The rest of what's going on is the madness of this woman, who we already have seen has a history and a track record of questionable things, whether it be that 501c3, which you didn't even reference, which Sam Antar found was donating. She had 501c3 donating to her campaign in 2011 or 12,
you can't
which
do
is
that.
a felony.
Yeah.
Well, she did it.
Well,
so she's got a history of this. And then, as we know, Jason, who is she hanging around? And
exactly.
What is she doing?
Jimmy Rodriguez, consul. So if she is an arch criminal, that whole relationship starts to make sense. Okay. So, the death certificate. Sal, I know you got a tight time schedule and we're almost getting to the end of our hour. Let's at least begin to address this death certificate, because I allege what Tish James did is something that I refer to as posthumous identity duplexing. And if she did fake her father's death, how was Joel Gilbert able to present what appears to be a legitimate death certificate? It's published in apparent defiance of New York State probate law, but whatever, they chose to do it. It's quite elegant in its criminal brilliance. Letitia James didn't simply file a questionable probate petition. She might have executed a calculated act of posthumous identity duplexing. She would locate another guy in Queens named Robert James, who died sometime between 1983 and 1999. This is what lands us on 1986. It's a relatively arbitrary date relative to any of the transactions that are recorded, the refinancing, the sale of that property. Why 1986? All of the lawsuits with Cadillac didn't start until 1999. So he just needs to be, well, not all of them, but he's reading the article. He didn't know about them because he didn't have Pacer back then. No one's telling him about lawsuits unless he gets served with one or he reads about it in the paper. So So in 1999, he needs to be dead. And conveniently, there's a Robert James in 1986 who died. Let's steal his identity, use his credentials, his death certificate, put that in the file. That would be a good reason to have it not properly filed if you're Tish James and you say, look, I just need this probate document to get whatever, but I don't want this to go fully through the system to show that he's actually dead. Then I satisfy my father's need to keep getting paid with his Social Security checks, or whoever's getting those checks. Ricky can still live at the apartment. It starts to trigger a lot of these things.
Again, it is a theory that would make sense if you could, as you putting it together. But again, the number one suspect here is Tish James herself, because there's the trail of all of this is someone who knows what they're doing, or going to claim they don't know what they're doing, and filing paperwork, not filing it conveniently. And then when other times when it needs to be done, everything's done in a timely manner as well. In other aspects, it's not. And then this woman goes on to be someone who's in charge of actually prosecuting people that do exactly what she did, which makes her an expert in this entire line of criminality, because she knows about it. So she can charge people knowing, hey, I've done it myself.
Exactly.
I know what you're looking for. I've done it myself. So it would be this could be a complete quagmire if this could somehow be proven and she could be prosecuted, because I'm sure she has prosecuted people and their only expertise on this is, hey, I did this, so I know how you did it because I did it. Isn't that the way it is?
Look, I'm not saying this is proof. I want people to understand. I try to speak very clearly because I am not saying this is proof. I'm saying this is evidence, and this is my theory. Here, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in the court of public opinion, I want to present you with my closing argument, because I know Sal has to go. And what's the final question they always ask in these detective books and movies? You got the means, motive, and opportunity. But who benefited, Sal? Who benefited from this? The question must be asked in any serious investigation. In 1999, the answer is clear. The only person who benefited from this identity erasure was a living Robert James. He was removed from a fraudulent mortgage, removed from the property deed, and permanently shielded from testifying, from any kind of civil liability, and from any criminal prosecution. Now, in 2025, the primary beneficiary has shifted to Tish James. She must now continue to cover this remarkably elaborate fraud that she concocted and has been servicing for 42 years.
Yeah, I
rest my case.
Well, I'll say this. I like Joel and Sam. I follow their work.
Got nothing to do with liking them or disliking them. I liked them until they started disparaging me publicly and saying this is bullshit.
No, all three of you are all my friends. I like each and every one of your angles looking at things. You also, again, right now we're discussing this, but you were, I believe, the first person to mention anything about Social Security, which would be a tremendous crime, which could be a little bigger, because now, again, not to be speculative, but in theory and looking, Social Security checks could be cashed by, I don't know, doesn't have to be
anybody.
Her, it could be people she knows.
Right.
So I'm just saying that rabbit hole is even bigger, because Social Security fraud, which you've also proven is, I don't know if there's any record of him being on a Social Security website.
Yeah, I didn't find that initially, but that was before Joel. There's still a lot more research to be done, because now Joel has put out this death certificate. It's got a Social Security number on it. I haven't really dug into that death certificate yet. It's there, and I called the court. I was like, how did he get this? Obviously, he won't tell me. Maybe he'll tell you. Maybe he'll tell everybody. He should, I think, if he wants to be open and transparent. I mean, here's what I'm saying, Sal. I am totally okay with anybody and everybody saying, Jason, I disagree with you saying this because, so somebody sent me an obituary and they said, look, here's more evidence that the father is dead. And I said, whoa, that is quite interesting. But then I looked at it throughout the day, and then I realized, hey, wait a minute. This obituary has a problem. Because, and I can't explain it, but none of the siblings, this is a Robert James who died in Queens in 1986 to a wife named Nellie. Now, I mean, I think you could I found many Robert Jameses who died in Queens between 1983 and 1999. There's a lot, but you're going to now add the caveat that he's got to be married to a woman named Nellie. You're talking about winning the lottery type odds now. It does seem to defy probability, so I can't explain that. But here's the really weird part. Look at this. All of the sisters and brothers, that's not the same names as Letitia James's sisters and brothers, and this doesn't say anything about the guy having a daughter named Letitia. So what the hell is this, Sal?
Well, I could tell the four sisters. I know. I'm not gonna say. I know one of her sisters' names, of course, and because they work for the police department. Another crazy twist.
Tressia.
That the sister.
Is it any? It's none of those names. It's none of those names.
No, her real sister, but her sister is not in it. I know who her sister's name is, and her sister's name is not there. So I don't think this is the same person.
Harry is not there. Anthony is not one of her brothers. Christopher is not one of her brothers. No, none of this stuff matches. So this is not the autopsy for the father. This is not the autopsy. This is not the dead Muppet that you're looking for, Sal.
No,
somebody else.
That's somebody else. Only because I know. And that's kind of what you do in research or investigative work. You could kind of through backtracking and kind of like in a back alley find things that you won't see up front, which is what I think Joel did in a brilliant way. I don't know how he did it, but he definitely legally found these documents.
Did Tish James give it to him?
Back-alleyed what? Huh?
Did Tish James give it to him? Because she's the only one who should legally have it.
But it could be somebody, it could be a source that did it. And we don't know who or what that could be. You never know.
Everybody says a lot of people source.
Source. But it's now there for everyone to look at. And now you could really start to dig into the other thing, which you hit the nail. And I'm focusing on somebody find the Social Security, look into this. And because that would fall in line with exactly what Elon Musk has been saying, where people they found people that were 300 years old and they were checks.
Exactly. The 105-year-old man is still cashing Social Security checks. That seems super likely.
And if that's happening, now you pulled on a huge ball of yarn and got the biggest treasure out of it all, because Social Security would be the biggest crime.
Where the hell
but
did
it's
he get
something
this
that you heard
from
the administration in office right now in D.C. saying we have people that somebody cashed a check for someone who's 300 years old. That's a problem. And as a lawyer and a government, she would know that.
Let me ask you one more logic question.
So that's what.
If the purpose of anybody investigating this, we suspect that Letitia James is a fraudster. She's writing that she's married to her father. She's involved with this fraudulent loan company. So why would the default presumption be that this document is legitimate? Why wouldn't we presume that this is fraudulent as well? How did Joel authenticate this? If the court tells me he's not legally allowed to have it, where the hell did he get it from, and how does he know it's real?
That would be, from the way I'm looking at this, and I know the state that is how this death certificate would look. Has to be that would be it.
It's a mystery right now, Sal. We're going to keep looking at it. I know you got to go. We're butting up right on the hour, so I want to thank you for another great show. I want to remind people that they can follow Sal at the Sal Greco on X. And people can also support Sal by going to his website, salgreco.com. You're going to want to scroll all these very flattering pictures of Sal with Roger Stone and other people. Get to the support tab, tap on that, and send Sal your support. We can't do these shows. There's no commercials, you've noticed. So please support Sal. Please support this research. Anything you want to say before we go, Sal?
Yeah, so again, I like all the theories here. I think that Joel and Sam seem to have a lot of they found a lot of discrepancies that have led to what happened now with DOJ looking at it. I think you came in also. You have valid points. I think you were the first to point at the Social Security thing, which is a completely different ball of yarn, which would completely shatter this whole thing. It's a federal case off the bat, and it would actually fall in line with the Trump agenda and what Trump has been trying to stop, because they literally said somebody cashed a check for a 300-year-old person. So this would be like a fraud built on it's like a mountain of fraud, and it just compounds itself over. It just keeps getting higher. And she, who I kept telling people was the ringleader of whatever went on in that seedy place in the Bronx, her face smiling with a mob associate should ring a bell. And she's not stupid. She's a very smart woman, obviously, because she's duped everyone, including this now defunct funding company that was committing fraud on their own. It's unbelievable. It really is.
She hasn't duped everyone, Sal. So listen, I want to thank you again. It's a great show. I hope everybody enjoyed this. Dig into this information, everybody. Tell me what I've got wrong. Help us figure this out. This isn't done. There's a lot more to figure out. And
Joel, I say this too. Joel, if people are out there looking for who the hell was on the lawn at the Capitol on a certain day a few years ago, and you want to call yourselves online sleuths, whatever that means, you should grab these documents and start being a little bit of a sleuths and see what you can find and be a helping hand, because that's what people are asking for. That's how it started with Sam, then Joel, now you, and it could be somebody else waiting in the wings, seeing something that we don't even see or know about yet, because we're not looking at in the right field as far as what the documents in front of us say.
Yeah. Now with that, Sal, have a great weekend. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm going to keep